Join me today as I teach you how to make fun and easy holiday tags. Once you have this idea in place, you'll want to have blank tags on hand all year long so you are always ready with your gift giving wrapping needs. For this project, I'm using these blank manila tags that I get from Amazon. They're about a 4 by 2 inch size, and you can get them in bulk of 50, 100, 200, and they're just great to have on hand. Here's an example of one that I did, and I'm going to be using today a variety of supplies: Iron Orchid design stamps, some ink, and just a basic roll of ribbon that I got from Costco a couple of years ago. I'm going to be using a little palette of watercolor paints and whatever I have on hand. So let's get started. The first thing I like to do when creating my stamps is I look at my tag as a mini blank canvas. And whenever I am creating a picture on a blank canvas, I always like to build some background. So I'm using the vintage texture stamp from Iron Orchid Designs, and I am stamping it in a green color and placing that on the stamp. Then I'm going to use this ribbon that I bought from Costco probably about 3 years ago now. You know, everything comes in a very large size. So imagine if I'm wrapping my gift with this ribbon, and now I'm going to create a coordinating tag to go with it. I always look for ribbon that has words on it or designs on it so that I can implement those into my gift wrapping. For this tag, I'm going to choose the poinsettia on the ribbon that is all whole and complete. They're all over the ribbon, and I have used the ones that are cut in half and all of the sizes to just create a variety of patterns. But for this tutorial, I'm just going to cut this one out. I'm just using regular scissors, and I'm just doing a basic, no fussy cut around the petals of the poinsettia. Once I have it all cut out, I'm just going to glue it to my surface, and I'm going to put it down around the bottom of the tag because I want to put some wording above it. To adhere it to the tag, I'm just going to use my favorite high gloss varnish. I just grab it from Hobby Lobby. It's the Duraclear high gloss varnish. It also works as a glue. So I'm going to place some on my tag first, and then I'm just going to place my poinsettia that I cut out from the ribbon right into the Duragloss, and then I'm going to put some Duragloss on top of it. I'm going to go ahead and cover the entire tag so it has an even look to it, and I'm going to come back a little bit later. I'm going to give this all a chance to dry, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to stamp a word on it, and I'm going to add some sparkle and glitter to it. But for now, we'll just set this tag aside and let it dry. So we've got our first tag ready to go. So here's a little tip. The wire on these tags can be a little unruly and get in the way. So before I get started, I just wrap it around my finger and it keeps it out of the way. Now we're ready for the next tag. For this next tag, I'm going to use a Iron Orchid Design transfer. I don't remember, I think it's from last year's transfer set, but this year's Christmas transfers had some beautiful floral bouquets in them. Now this one is not the exact size of the tag, but that doesn't matter. To create my background for this tag, I'm going to use the stamp Kindest Regards. It's just a letter and it has a lot of script on it, and I'd love that to be my background. I'm going to stamp it very lightly with a red ink. Then I just place it on my tag so that it's covering the entire tag, and hold it in place and rub over it. And now I have some beautiful script that is going to be the background for my tag. I get my transfer and I take the white piece off, and then I use the grid marks to line up my transfer where I want it to be. Like I said, it's not really going to fit completely, but that's okay. I want to position it on my tag so that I can add some wording later if I want to do that. I get the rubbing stick that comes with all Iron Orchid Design transfers, and I just rub the transfer on. When you're applying a transfer, you can probably see it here, that when the transfer releases from the transfer carrier, it goes a little opaque. You can usually hear it happening. And then I know my transfer has released. I just tuck the overlap pieces around the transfer, and there it is. Look how beautiful. So I like to zhuzh my tags up a little bit more, and I'm going to use some of this red archival ink that I get from Hobby Lobby. And I also use some IOD black ink and other colors that IOD sells. But for this particular tag, I'm going to use one of the new Rethunk Junk metallic colors. It's a red. And it has some beautiful gold flecks throughout it. It looks a little pink in the jar, but it will dry to a more red tone. I have this tool that I use, and I really love these because they come with removable pads that you Velcro on. So you can wash these out and reuse them, or have several different colors going at a time. Of course, I get them from Amazon. They come in a package of 2 with lots of reusable and replaceable pads. I dip it into my metallic and I wipe some of that back so it's not too saturated. I'm going to go around the edge of my tag, and I'm going to go in a downward motion. This way I have more control over where the paint goes. I'm going to come back and color in more on the corners to give it more of a shaded look. And then when it's done and I've taken off a lot of the paint and just have a very faint amount left on the pad, with a very light hand, I'm just going to go over the whole tag and give it this really beautiful red hue. And that just finishes it off. Now you may be wondering what I do to the back of the tags. I just leave them blank because I feel like that is the place where I'm going to write my message to the person I'm giving the gift to. And so I just don't worry about it and I leave it blank. The metallic I used is called Golden Red, and you could see the beautiful gold flecks in it. Now let's go back to the first tag that we made, and I have a stamp that says Merry Christmas on it. And so I'm simply going to stamp that with a green ink, and then I'm going to place it right above the poinsettia that I cut from the ribbon. When I'm placing my stamps or my accoutrements onto my tag, I'm usually going to go either a little high or a little low and leave some space so I can add a word if I want to. So now I have the Merry Christmas on here, and I'm going to finish this off by going back and coating the entire piece with my Duragloss high varnish. Now I will say that usually I can do it right after I stamp, but in this case, because I had already put some Duragloss on it, the ink wasn't totally dry, so I just went over that lightly so it wouldn't smudge. Now I'm going to use a green glitter, and I love a fine glitter, not a chunky glitter, because it just is easier to use and it looks better on the product. I usually pour it in my hand and then pinch some out and sprinkle it on so it doesn't come out too clumpy. Now I'm just going to add a simple little bow. I have some skinny little ribbon, and I'm going to cut off a long enough length so it's easy for me to tie a bow, to clip it at the ends, take a little dab of my Titebond Quick and Thick glue and put it up at the top and add the bow. Bows are optional, but they add a little something extra to the tag. So add a bow, get some sparkly jewels and put those around, just glitter, anything you can think of that I like to call them accoutrements that you can add to your tag to just zhuzh it up. And there we have it. This one is complete. So cute and so festive. And I just cut that poinsettia from my roll of ribbon. All right, let's move on to the next tag. I'm gonna roll my wire and get it out of the way, and my little blank canvas is ready to go. For this one, we're going to use the Iron Orchid Design Classical Christmas Stamp. That's new this year. If you're interested in purchasing any of these stamps, go to coconutbarrel.com, coconutbarrel, all one word.com, and we can ship them to you in the US. This stamp has some very cute elements on it, some cute little angels, lots of holly and trim. But I'm going to use these 2 holly leaves with berries for this one. But before we do that, let's build our background. Now, the background that I'm going to use is a stamp, a woodblock stamp that I found at a thrift store. Whenever I go to thrift stores, I always look in the arts and crafts section, and people are, giving up their hobbies, and you can find great little stamps to use for cheap. I think maybe I paid 25 cents for this one. And I love the little distressed background that it provides, and it's perfect for small projects like this. I also like to use my vintage texture stamp, but for this one, I want to use this distressed look. So I'm going to take my ink pad. This is the color Turmeric, and it comes from Iron Orchid Design. I'm just going to rub it all over my stamp, and then I'm going to apply it to my tag. And I love that background. It's just really perfect for this stamp. Now I'm going to use the holly leaves that I've already placed on a little piece of thin mount. Thin mount comes in a large sheet, and you can cut it to size. I'm going to use some red and some green on my holly leaves. I am going to stamp it down towards the bottom of my tag because I want to put a word or some lettering above it. So I want to leave space for that. You can do it at the top, or you can do it at the bottom, however you'd like to do, like I did with these tags. For this one, I used the tinsel transfer. So let's put it right down here. I place it where I want it and hold it in place, and hold it with one hand while I rub over the stamp with the other hand so it doesn't move. And such beautiful detail. Is just gorgeous. I love this one. So many possibilities. You can make your own cards with it, the tags, gift wrap. You're just limited by your imagination and how you could use this. Do you know that you can use your stamps and emboss them in air dry clay? This would make a beautiful ornament as well. So now to zhuzh this up just a little bit more, I'm going to put a word on it, and I like to use from the Apothecary Labels. This is a great stamp set from Iron Orchid Design. You get smaller letters, and they come in 2 different styles, and each sheet has 2 different sizes, larger and smaller. This one that I'm using has thinner lines on the letters, and so I'm just going to stamp out the word joy. Now here's a little tip. I always have a hard time, if I'm going to put a word straight across, I have a hard time lining it up. So I find if I do it at an angle, or I make the letters a little wonky, like turn one to the left, turn one to the right, then it takes off the pressure of getting it lined up perfectly. So I love this word. It's a night joy. It's a great word, and it's a short word, and it fits perfectly on these tags, and it just fits for the season. Now let's zhuzh this up just a little bit more, and of course glitter would make this just right. So I'm going to take my Duraclear High Gloss Varnish and put a little bit of it on the berries. Then I'm going to use my fine glitter I think this color is called Crimson, and I got all of my glitters from Amazon, and just sprinkle it on the berries, and now my tag has just a little bit of beautiful sparkle to it. I want to finish this off by going around the edges of my tag, and I'm going to use like my favorite ink color. It's called Coffee, and I get this one. This is a Ranger ink color that I get from Hobby Lobby. And I just go around the edges, and just like I did with my other little tool, I go in a downward motion, and it just finishes the tags off when you go around the edges, and you can go as light or as heavy as you want. So how cute is this one? So easy, so cute, so festive, and so personal because you create it. The next stamp set we're going to use is called Frosty's Sweet Shop, and it also has a lot of great elements on it for making tags. For this one, I'm going to use the snowman, and I'm going to use this new Rethunk Junk color called Cobalt Blue. It is beautiful, and this is going to be a color that I'm going to be using all year long in my work. I'm going to use my little spongy applicator. I'm dipping it in the metallic, and then I'm going to wipe some of it back because I don't want it too saturated. I'm going to go around the edges, and this is how I'm building my background for this tag. I'm going around the edges first, and then I'm going to take with a light hand kind of what's left over in the sponge, and I'm just going to go over the entire tag with it. The metallics are going to give the background a little bit of sparkle and glisten, and it's going to be lighter and heavier in some areas, and it almost gives the look that that distressed kind of background stamp gave it as well. So this is a great little technique if you don't have extra stamps or you don't have ideas for how to build background. Just use some paint or the metallics that you have and create it. So for this stamp, I'm going to use the snowman, and I am just going to ink them up with the IOD black ink. He has such amazing details on him. All of the Iron Orchid design stamps are amazing details. He doesn't fit totally on the stamp, not all of his parts. So I'm going to put him at the with his hat at the very top, and most of them, enough of him, of the snowman fits on the stamp. I place it down, and I want to be careful that it doesn't move while I am inking up my tag. I hold it with one hand, rub, and then switch hands in with the other. Look at the cute, darling details in this tag and this stamp. Now I'm going to add just a little bit of color, and I'm going to do it real simply with a little cheap set of watercolor paints. I'm going to be using the same brush, so I'll just kind of wipe that off. But what I do is I just take my fine mist spray bottle and I mist all of the colors, so I don't have to have a little cup of water to dip in and out of. And then when I want to change colors, I just wipe the paintbrush off on my roll of paper towels. I'm going to give him a little orange nose. I'm going to make his hat nice and black. I'm going to paint his coal eyes and mouth and buttons in black. And then I'm going to paint his scarf with, I think, the color turquoise. Now, as I was doing this, I was thinking what would really be cute for my area, because I live in St. Augustine, Florida, and we are a coastal community, is if I had some beach sand on hand. Well, you'll see where I add the glitter to the snowman. So another great idea is to put some beach sand on him instead of snow. I think I'll be doing that with some of my snowman tags, but this one's going to get some glitter. So keep watching and you'll see. So now I've got his scarf all painted, and the great thing about these watercolors is it dries really quickly, so you can easily move on to the next step. So I'm going to take my Duraclear High Gloss. Oh, nope, first I'm going to do some around the edges. And for this one, oh, excuse me, I'm doing a voiceover here, and so I'm watching the video as it goes by to see what my next step is. So I'm just going to put my Duragloss on the snowman's body, and then I'm going to take my very finely ground glitter, my white glitter, and sprinkle it over his body. Now this will dry a little clearer, so you'll be able to see all of those details of the snowman once it dries. Or when it dries, if you still can't see enough, just wipe them off a little bit and you'll be able to see it. But it gives it a very frosty, fun snowman look. So add some white glitter or some beach sand to your snowman. Next, we're going to be using the Winter Wonderland stamp. I love this stamp because you can really use this all year long, and the details on these trees are amazing, as you would expect from your Iron Orchid design products. I'm going to use two of the smaller trees, and I'm going to place them kind of side by side. But first I'm going to build background. So I'm going to use the same stamp that I used before, but just with a different color because I want a more brown background. So I'm using the Iron Orchid design color turmeric and just rubbing it all over the stamp, and there we have it. This is the perfect background. I'm going to take my wet wipe and wipe my stamp off, which I try to do that each time I use a stamp. Just use a wet wipe and wipe it back. Now my background is ready, so I'm going to take two of the smallest trees and I'm going to stamp them with a color that I believe this one's called Evergreen. Isn't that appropriate? So let's stamp up our trees, And the first one I'm going to place over here to the far right of my tag. This is the tallest tree. I want to press nice and firmly and look at the beautiful details of that tree. I just love it. And then next to it, I'm going to stamp again with the same color, and it's going to be a little bit smaller of a tree. I could mask this stamp, but I'm just going to put the tree stamp over to the left and just kind of stamp, half of it on there. So now I've got my little forest of trees. Now I'm going to add some baubles to the trees. And so I'm just going back to my watercolors, and I'm going to turn my paintbrush over, and I'm going to use the bottom end of my paintbrush, dip it in the red, and just put little red circles here and there on my tree branches. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. I'm doing it all in red, but you could do different colors and that would be fun as well. So now my trees look like they're out in the forest, all decorated and ready for the holidays. At this point, you could come back and put some glitter on it. I have put the white glitter on the branches to make it look like snow, but I'm going to use my next metallic color called Mysterious Forest. Do you see the gold flecks in that? These metallics are new and they're so beautiful, from Rethunk Junk by Laura. I am going to dip my little applicator sponge in there, wipe some of it back, and then go around the edges just like I have showed you. I want to make sure that I go in that downward motion because I want it to just be a real subtle look and effect. I don't want my sponge to be oversaturated, and I just want a little touch of color. Now I'm going to come back in, and I'm going to come in more around the edges. So I'm going to go over the top, more of the top part of the tag, but moving in an outward motion. Love it. It's beautiful. Now the ribbon that I buy, I like to find ribbon that already has the words on it. And so this little thin ribbon has the words Merry Christmas. So I'm just trimming it up so I see the words Merry Christmas. Then I'm going to put a little dab of my Titebond Quick and Thick glue on each end of the ribbon. And I'm going to glue it down, and I'm going to make it dimensional. I'm not gluing it flat. I'm gluing it so it has a little arch to it. And there it's so easy to add my words to my ribbon that says Merry Christmas, to my tag that says Merry Christmas, and how cute is that? Cute, easy, festive, and handmade. So let's look again at the tags that we made today using Iron Orchid design stamps, but you don't have to have these products to make your own tags. See, I made the one just from the ribbon. And look around your house, use old Christmas cards, do your own drawings, just get creative and enjoy the process. These go great on hostess gifts, that box of cookies that you're making, all those holiday treats, but spend some time, get creative, and make something that comes from your heart for those that you love. I hope you're inspired today. Happy creating.